The elevator door slid open just as his hand closed around her wrist.
Let go of me!
"Let go of me,"
hurting me.
Rhea whispered, panic flooding her chest like ice water. She didn't think, didn't look, just yanked her arm free and stumbled forward into the elevator, her shoulders slamming against the metal wall. The doors began to close, slow and mechanical, and for one terrible second, she thought he'd follow her inside. But then the gap narrowed, and Marcus's face disappeared behind the steel, and she was alone. Except she wasn't. Rhea's head snapped up, and her breath caught in her throat. A man stood 3 feet away from her, perfectly still in the corner of the elevator. Black suit, black tie, blood on his knuckles. His dark eyes met hers with no surprise, no question, just a calm, assessing silence that made her skin prickle. She pressed herself against the wall, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. The elevator descended. Neither of them moved. "I'm sorry," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to—" "Quiet," he said. It wasn't harsh, just a command, smooth and absolute. And for some reason, she obeyed. Footsteps echoed from somewhere above. Then Marcus's voice muffled through the elevator shaft. "Rhea, don't do this. Just come back. We can talk." Her whole body went rigid. The man in the suit glanced at the ceiling, then back at her. His expression didn't change. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. Marcus was standing there, breathing hard, his hand braced against the doorframe. His eyes locked on hers, and that familiar smile spread across his face, the one that used to make her feel safe, the one that now made her stomach turn. "Baby, come on," Marcus said softly. "You're being dramatic." The man in the suit stepped forward. Just one step, but it changed everything. The air shifted. Marcus's smile faltered. "She's with me," the man said. His voice was quiet, final. There was no aggression in it, no threat, but Marcus went pale. He took a step back, hands raised slightly, like he'd just recognized something dangerous. "I didn't know," Marcus said quickly. "I didn't realize she was—" "Leave." Marcus looked at Rhea one last time, something dark flickering in his eyes. Then he turned and walked away, his footsteps fading down the hallway. The elevator doors closed again. Rhea's knees buckled, and she slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, her hands shaking so hard she had to press them against her thighs. She couldn't breathe right, couldn't think. "Thank you," she whispered. The man didn't respond. He pressed a button, and the elevator began moving again. She looked up at him. Really looked this time. He was tall, maybe early 30s, with sharp cheekbones and black hair swept back from his face. There was a stillness to him, like he existed outside of normal time, moving only when necessary. And those eyes, cold and dark and too aware. "Who are you?" she asked. "Someone who was in the wrong place," he said. "Or the right one. Depends on your perspective." The elevator stopped. The doors opened into an underground parking garage. He stepped out without looking back. Rhea scrambled to her feet. "Wait!" He paused, turning slightly. "Please," she said, and she hated how small her voice sounded. "Don't send me back out there." For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not sympathy exactly, more like recognition. "Get in the car," he said. Before we continue with Rhea's story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Have you ever had to run from someone who claimed to love you? Let's talk about it. A black sedan sat in the corner of the garage, windows tinted dark. He opened the passenger door and waited. Rhea hesitated, every instinct screaming that getting into a stranger's car was insane, especially a stranger with blood on his hands. But Marcus was still up there. And this man, whoever he was, had made Marcus back down with 3 words. She got in the car. He drove in silence, navigating through the city streets with the ease of someone who knew every shortcut, every camera blind spot. Rhea watched the buildings blur past, her mind racing. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe." That's not an answer. It's the only one I'm giving right now. She pressed her lips together, frustration cutting through the fear. "I need to know who you are. I need to understand what just happened back there." "My name is Kim Yoo-jun," he said, "and what happened back there is I stopped a man from taking something that didn't belong to him. I'm not a thing," No, he agreed. You're not. The car pulled into an underground lot beneath a sleek high-rise. He parked and got out, and after a moment, she followed. They took a private elevator up, his hand hovering over the button panel before he pressed the one marked with a simple dash, no number. The kind of floor that wasn't supposed to exist. The elevator opened into a penthouse apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, lights glittering like scattered diamonds. The furniture was minimal, expensive, impersonal. It felt less like a home and more like a hotel room for someone who never stayed long enough to leave a mark. Eugene shrugged off his jacket and draped it over a chair. Rhea noticed the blood on his knuckles again, already drying to a dark rust color. "Are you hurt?" she asked before she could stop herself. He glanced at his hand like he'd forgotten about it. "No? Then whose blood is that? Someone who made a poor decision." A chill ran down her spine. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly very aware that she was alone with a man she didn't know, in a place no one knew about. I should go. Where? The question hung in the air. Where would she go? Back to her apartment, where Marcus had the key. Back to her office, where he knew her schedule. Back to any of the places he'd already found. Her a dozen times before? "I don't know," she whispered. Eugene walked to the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of water. He set one on the counter in front of her. "Sit," he said. "You're shaking." She was. Her whole body was trembling like she'd been standing in the cold for hours. She sank onto one of the bar stools and wrapped her hands around the glass, letting the coolness ground her. "Why did he leave when you told him to?" she asked. "Because he recognized what I am." "And what's that?" Eugene's eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something almost like honesty there. "Someone you should run from." Rhea spent that first night on the couch, fully dressed, unable to sleep. Eugene had disappeared into another room without a word, leaving her alone with her thoughts and the city lights blinking through the windows. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's face in the elevator doorway, that smile that had once meant comfort and now only meant control. When morning came, she found Eugene in the kitchen, making coffee. He'd changed into a fresh shirt, charcoal gray and perfectly pressed. The blood was gone from his hands. "I need to go to work," Rhea said. He glanced at her. "Do you?" "Yes. I have a project deadline, and I need my life to be normal, or at least look normal, because if I don't show up, Marcus will—" "Marcus won't do anything," Eugene interrupted. "I made that clear. You don't know him. I know men like him." He poured coffee into 2 cups, black, no sugar. They operate on perception of power. Right now, he thinks you're protected. He'll wait. Wait for what? For me to lose interest. He slid 1 cup across the counter to her. For you to leave. For an opening. Rhea wrapped her hands around the cup, letting the heat seep into her palms. "So what am I supposed to do? Hide here forever?" "No, you're supposed to tell me who you are and why he thinks he owns you." The directness of it caught her off guard. She'd expected questions, sure, but not this blunt demand for her story. Still, something about the way Eugene asked made it feel less like an interrogation and more like a transaction. Information for safety. Simple. "My name is Rhea Song," she said. "I'm a junior architect at Morrison & Lee, and Marcus doesn't think he owns me. He just thinks he's the only reason I exist." Eugene leaned against the counter, waiting. "I met him 3 years ago," Rhea continued, the words coming out flat and rehearsed, like she'd told this story to herself 100 times. "I was broke, trying to finish my degree, working 2 jobs and still couldn't make rent. My mom was black, my dad was Korean. He died when I was 6, and after that, his family stopped talking to us. My mom did her best, but we moved a lot. Shelters, relatives' places, cheap motels. I never had a space that felt mine." She took a sip of coffee, bitter and strong. "When I met Marcus, he seemed like everything I needed. Stable, reliable. He helped me with rent, co-signed my apartment, got me an interview at the firm where I work now, and for a while it was good. I thought I was lucky." "When did it change?" Eugene asked. "Slowly. So slowly I didn't notice until I was already trapped." Rhea's voice dropped. First, he wanted to manage my money because I was bad with budgets. Then he didn't like my friends because they were distracting me from my career. Then he needed to know where I was because he worried about me. Every boundary I tried to set, he found a way around. And the worst part? He never yelled, never hit me, just made me feel like I owed him everything. Debt, Eugene said quietly. The cleanest cage. Rhea looked at him, startled. Yeah, exactly that. So why run now? Because yesterday, he told me he'd talked to my boss, told him we were getting married, that I'd probably want to go part-time after the wedding, maybe start a family soon. Her hands tightened around the cup. I never said yes to any of that, but he was already building the cage smaller, and I realized if I didn't leave right then, I never would. Silence settled between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Eugene studied her with those dark, unreadable eyes. You design buildings, he said finally. It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway. Adaptive reuse. I take broken structures and turn them into something livable, buildings people have given up on. Why? Because broken doesn't mean worthless, she said. It just means someone has to see what it could be instead of what it is. Something flickered across Eugene's face, too quick to read. He set his cup down. I have a business meeting. You'll stay here. I can't just hide. You're not hiding. You're giving him time to make a mistake. He grabbed his jacket from the back of a chair. There's food in the kitchen. The door's locked from the inside. Don't open them for anyone. Eugene, she said, and he paused at the door. Why are you helping me? He didn't turn around. I'm not helping you. I'm keeping you out of the way. Then he was gone. Rhea stood alone in the pristine penthouse, coffee going cold in her hands, and wondered what the hell she'd walked into. She spent the day exploring the space, careful not to touch anything that looked important. The apartment was full of contradictions. Expensive art on the walls, but no personal photos. A bookshelf filled with leather-bound classics, but the spines were too perfect, uncracked. A home that looked lived in, but felt hollow. She found paper and pencils in a drawer and did the only thing that ever calmed her mind. She drew. Floor plans, at first, then elevations, then a full concept for a children's library. Bright spaces, lots of windows, places where kids could be loud and safe at the same time. She didn't hear Eugene return until he was standing behind her, looking over her shoulder at her sketches. What is this? He asked. Rhea jumped, her pencil skittering across the page. Jesus, you're quiet. What is it? He repeated. A library for kids. She set the pencil down, suddenly self-conscious. I just needed something to do with my hands. Eugene picked up the sketch, studying it with more attention than she expected. Why a library? Because kids shouldn't have to be quiet to be safe, Rhea said. They should be able to make noise and take up space and still feel protected. He was quiet for a long moment, still looking at the drawing. Then he set it down carefully on the table. I'm buying a building, he said. Condemned property in the West District. Needs a complete redesign. Rhea blinked. Okay? I want you to look at it. I'm a junior architect. I don't do commercial projects. You do now. He pulled out his phone and showed her photos of a 6-story brick structure, windows boarded up, graffiti covering the ground floor. Give me a proposal. What would you do with it? She stared at the screen, her mind already racing through possibilities. Load-bearing walls, natural light, zoning restrictions. Why? Because I'm curious, Eugene said, and because you need something to do besides waiting. Rhea took the phone from his hand, zooming in on the building's facade. Her fingers itched for her drafting tools. I'd need measurements, access to the interior, permits, and I'll get you whatever you need. She looked up at him, searching his face for the angle, the trap. But all she saw was that same calm assessment, like he was watching a chess game only he could see. Okay, she said finally, I'll do it. Eugene nodded once, then headed toward his room. He paused at the doorway. Rhea, he said, and it was the first time he'd used her name. Don't trust me, but don't run from me either." Then he was gone, and she was left holding his phone, staring at a broken building and wondering which one of them was more damaged. 3 days later, Rhea stood inside the condemned building with a flashlight, a measuring tape, and a growing sense of possibility. Yujun had delivered on his promise. She had access, she had the original blueprints, and she had freedom to explore every floor without question. The building was a disaster. Water damage on the 4th floor, structural concerns on the 2nd, outdated electrical throughout. But the bones were good. High ceilings, large windows, original brick that just needed cleaning. She could see it already. Mixed income housing, ground floor community space, something that would serve the neighborhood instead of displacing it. "You've been here for 6 hours, Yujun's voice came from behind her. Rhea didn't jump this time. She was getting used to his silent approaches. "The load-bearing walls are solid. If we reinforce here and here, we can open up the ground floor completely. Natural light, accessible entrance, space for a community center or cafe." "A cafe," he repeated, something almost like amusement in his voice. "Or a community center, whatever serves the neighborhood best." She turned to face him, holding up her tablet covered in notes and sketches. "This building can be something that actually helps people, not just another luxury development that prices everyone out. That's not profitable. It's sustainable, and it won't get you investigated." She pulled up her calculations. Mixed income housing qualifies for tax incentives. Community space builds goodwill. And if you're trying to clean money, this is a much better front than whatever you usually do. Yujun's eyebrow lifted slightly. "You think you know what I do?" "I know you're not a venture capitalist," Rhea said. "I know people are afraid of you. I know you move through the city like you own parts of it. And I know that blood on your knuckles wasn't from a business meeting. And yet you're still here." "Because you haven't lied to me," she said. "Marcus lied every day and called it love. You don't pretend to be something you're not." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant sound of traffic outside. Yujun stepped closer, taking the tablet from her hands and scrolling through her designs. His men had been skeptical when he'd brought her to the site. She'd heard them muttering in Korean, words she half understood from her father's language, the one her mother had tried to teach her before the memories became too painful. Words like waste and distraction and liability. But Yujun had shut them down with a single look. "Use her plan," he said now, handing the tablet back. "All of it." Rhea's breath caught. "You're serious?" "I don't joke about business. Your men think this is a mistake." "My men don't design buildings." He turned toward the exit. "You start Monday. I'll have contracts drawn up." "Yujun, wait." She caught his arm, then immediately let go, aware of the boundaries she'd just crossed. "Why are you doing this?" He looked at her hand, then at her face. "You asked me once why I helped you. I said I didn't. That was true. But keeping you here, giving you this project, that's not about business." "Then what is it about?" "I haven't decided yet," he said, and left her standing in the empty building with her plans and her racing heart. The next 2 weeks blurred together. Rhea threw herself into the project with an intensity that surprised even her. She worked 18-hour days, coordinating with contractors, arguing with Yujun's men about material choices, fighting for every detail that would make the building something special instead of just functional. Yujun watched. He didn't interfere, didn't override her decisions, just observed from the margins like he was studying something he didn't quite understand. Sometimes she'd look up from her drafting table, the one he'd had delivered to the penthouse, and find him reading nearby. Not working, just present. "Don't you have criminal empire things to do?" she asked one night, exhausted and punchy from too much coffee. "I'm doing them." "Reading a book is crime?" "Managing assets is." He turned a page. "You're an asset now." "Romantic," she said dryly. "I didn't say it was." But something had shifted between them, small things. He started asking about her work, actually listening to her explanations of load ratios and zoning codes. She started noticing things about him, the way he took his coffee black at 6 a.m. but added sugar at midnight, how he switched between English and Korean depending on who he was talking to, his voice changing pitch and rhythm, the scar on his left hand that he never explained. One night, she couldn't sleep. She found him on the balcony, smoking a cigarette and staring at the city lights. "I didn't know you smoked," she said. "I don't, usually." He took a drag, exhaled slowly. "Bad habit from when I was younger." Rhea leaned against the railing beside him, keeping a careful distance. "How old were you when you got into this life?" 16. "That's young. Old enough." He stubbed out the cigarette. "My family was killed in a territorial dispute. The men who raised me after taught me that trust is a liability and control is survival." "Do you believe that?" "I did," he said, "for a long time." "And now?" Yujun turned to look at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Now you're in my home, redesigning my property and asking questions no one else would dare ask. So I'm questioning everything I thought I knew about control." The air between them felt electric, charged with something Rhea couldn't name. She should step back, should maintain the professional distance that had kept things safe. Instead, she stepped closer. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "Things I shouldn't." "Like what?" "Like this," he said, and kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was hungry and desperate, and 3 weeks of tension finally breaking. Rhea's hands found his shirt, pulling him closer, and he backed her against the railing, his fingers tangling in her hair. She could taste the cigarette smoke on his tongue, feel the controlled strength in the way he held her, like he was afraid of breaking something fragile. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Yujun rested his forehead against hers. "This is a bad idea," he said. "Terrible," she agreed. "You should go inside." "I should." Neither of them moved. "Rhea?" he said, and her name in his mouth sounded like a confession. "I don't do this. I don't let people close. It's not safe." "For you or for them?" "Both." She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "I'm not asking for safe. I'm asking for real." Something in his expression cracked just for a moment. Then he kissed her again, slower this time. Deliberate. When he pulled back, his thumb traced her jawline. "Come inside," he said. "Not because I'm telling you to, because you want to." And God help her, she did. If you're still watching, drop a comment and let me know. Should Rhea trust her heart or her head? And don't forget to like and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. They didn't make it to the bedroom immediately. They stood in the living room, the city lights casting shadows across Yujun's face, and Rhea realized she was terrified, not of him, of herself, of wanting something this badly when wanting had always led to losing. "Wait," she whispered. Yujun stopped instantly, his hands on her waist but not moving. "Tell me what you need." "I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If I do this, if we do this, and you decide I'm not worth the risk, you tell me. You don't just disappear. You don't make me guess." Her voice cracked. "Marcus never gave me that. He just kept taking and taking until there was nothing left." Yujun's jaw tightened. "I'm not him." "I know, but I need to hear you say it." He lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. "If this becomes something I can't handle, I'll tell you. I won't lie, I won't pretend, and I won't make you feel small for trusting me." "Promise?" "I promise." She kissed him then, really kissed him, and this time when he led her to his bedroom, she went willingly. What happened next was careful and intense, Yujun checking in at every step, asking permission with his hands and his eyes and his words. When Rhea froze halfway through, a flash of Marcus's face intruding on the moment, Yujun stopped immediately. "Hey," he said softly, pulling back. "Look at me." "I'm sorry," she whispered, hating the tears that pricked her eyes. "I want this. Don't apologize." He brushed her hair back from her face. "We stop. Right now. It's okay." "I don't want to stop." "Then we go slower. Or we stop completely. Your choice." Rhea took a shaking breath, grounding herself in the present, in Yoo-jun's patient eyes, in the way he waited without pressure, without judgment. Slower, she said. I want slower. And he gave her that, took his time, let her lead when she needed to, followed when she wanted him to. By the time they finished, Rhea was crying for different reasons, overwhelmed by the gentleness of it, by the way Yoo-jun held her after like she was something precious instead of something conquered. You okay? He asked, his thumb wiping away her tears. Yeah, she said and meant it. I think I am. They lay tangled together in the dark, and for the first time in 3 years, Rhea felt safe enough to sleep without checking the locks. The next morning, everything felt different and exactly the same. Yoo-jun made coffee. Rhea reviewed blueprints, but now there were small touches. His hand on the small of her back as he passed, her fingers grazing his arm when she reached for her cup. A new language they were learning together. I have a meeting tonight, Yoo-jun said over breakfast. Business, the kind you shouldn't be around for. Okay, Rhea said, understanding what he wasn't saying. I'll work on the permit applications. He nodded, but something in his expression was troubled. Rhea, there are parts of my life I can't change. Things I do that aren't... I know, she interrupted. I'm not asking you to be someone else. You should. Maybe. But I'm not. She set down her coffee. You live in a world I don't understand. You do things that scare me, but you've never lied about it. And right now, that matters more than whatever moral high ground I'm supposed to take. Yoo-jun studied her for a long moment. You're either very brave or very foolish. Can I be both? He almost smiled. Almost. That night, Rhea worked late at the penthouse, losing herself in elevations and material specs. She was so focused that she didn't hear the door open, didn't realize someone was in the apartment until a voice made her blood run cold. Hey, baby. Marcus stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, that familiar sad smile on his face. Rhea shot to her feet, her chair clattering backward. How did you get in here? I followed you last week, saw which building you went into. He stepped closer. Wasn't hard to find the right floor. These luxury places, they all have the same security weaknesses. Get out, Rhea said, reaching for her phone. Marcus moved faster, grabbing her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to control. Don't. I just want to talk. Let go of me. Rhea, please, I know you're scared. I know I came on too strong about the wedding, but we can work through this. His voice was so gentle, so reasonable. This guy, whoever he is, he's using you. Can't you see that? He's dangerous. He's never pretended to be anything else, Rhea said, trying to pull away. You pretended to love me while you turned my life into a cage. I do love you. That's why I can't let you throw everything away for some criminal. His grip tightened, and for the first time, Rhea saw something ugly flicker in his eyes. I've given you everything. 3 years of my life. Do you know what I've sacrificed for you? Things I never asked you to sacrifice, she shot back. You're not a martyr, Marcus. You're a manipulator. He slapped her. The shock of it was worse than the pain. Marcus had never been physically violent, never crossed that line, and now they both stood frozen, staring at each other. His hand was still raised, trembling. Her cheek was on fire. I'm sorry, he whispered, reaching for her. God, Rhea, I'm sorry. I didn't mean... The door slammed open. Yoo-jun stood in the doorway, and the look on his face was the most terrifying thing Rhea had ever seen. Not rage, something colder, more final. 2 of his men flanked him, both armed. Marcus went pale. I was just... leaving, Yoo-jun finished, permanently. You can't threaten me. I'll go to the police. Yoo-jun walked forward slowly, deliberately, until he was inches from Marcus. Go ahead. Tell them how you broke into my home, how you put your hands on her. See how that works out for you. Marcus looked at Rhea, desperate. You're really choosing him? A gangster? I'm choosing myself, Rhea said quietly. For the first time in 3 years, I'm choosing me, and that choice doesn't include you. Yoo-jun nodded to his men. They grabbed Marcus by the arms, and he didn't resist, too shocked to fight back. As they dragged him toward the door, Marcus twisted around one last time. "This isn't over," he said. Eugene's voice was soft and absolute. "Yes, it is." The door closed. Silence filled the apartment. Then Eugene was crossing to Rhea, his hands gentle on her face, examining her cheek where the mark was already darkening. "Did he hurt you anywhere else?" he asked, his voice tight with controlled fury. "No, just my face." Her hands were shaking. "How did you know to come back?" "I had cameras installed. Silent alarm when the door opened." He pulled her close and she collapsed against him, finally letting herself break. "I'm sorry. I should have anticipated this. Should have protected you better." "You did protect me," she said into his chest. "You came." "I'll always come," he said, and it sounded like a vow. The next 2 weeks were quiet. Too quiet. Marcus had vanished completely, and while that should have brought relief, it only made Rhea more anxious. Eugene increased security, had men watching her apartment, her office, every place she might go. She should have felt suffocated. Instead, she felt seen. The building project moved forward. Permits approved, contractors hired, groundbreaking scheduled for next month. Rhea poured herself into the work, and slowly, the fear began to fade. She started sleeping through the night, started laughing at Eugene's dry observations, started believing that maybe, just maybe, she could have this. Safety and passion and a life that was actually hers. Then Eugene's second in command, a man named Chen, pulled her aside one afternoon at the construction site. "You need to be careful," Chen said in Korean, probably assuming she wouldn't understand. "I am careful," Rhea replied in the same language, watching his eyes widen in surprise. Chen recovered quickly. "With him, I mean. You're making him weak, distracted. In our world, that gets people killed." "Maybe your world needs to change," Rhea said. "It doesn't change. It just eats people who can't keep up." Chen's expression wasn't unkind, just honest. "He's different with you. Softer. His enemies will notice. And when they do, they'll use you against him." "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning. From someone who's known him since he was 16 and had nothing." Chen switched back to English. "I'm not saying leave him. I'm saying understand what staying costs." That night, Rhea couldn't shake Chen's words. She found Eugene in his office, reviewing financial reports, and sat down across from him. "Chen thinks I'm making you weak," she said. Eugene looked up, no surprise in his expression. "Chen worries too much." "Is he right?" "Probably." Eugene set down his pen. "Before you, I made decisions based purely on strategy. Now I find myself considering how those decisions affect you. That's a liability in my world. So what do? We accept the risk," he said simply, "or we don't. But I'm not willing to give this up. Not yet." "Not yet," Rhea repeated. "What happens when the risk becomes too much?" "Then I'll tell you, like I promised." He stood, walking around the desk to pull her to her feet. "But right now, in this moment, you're worth every risk I'm taking." He kissed her, and Rhea let herself believe him. 3 days later, Marcus made his move. Rhea had gone back to her old apartment to collect the last of her things. Eugene had advised against it, wanted to send his men instead, but she'd insisted. She needed to close this chapter herself, needed to prove she could walk back into that space without breaking. She was packing her drafting tools when she heard the door open. Her blood went cold. Marcus stood in the doorway, but he looked different. Thinner, unshaven, wild-eyed. "I've been waiting for you to come back." "Get out, Marcus." "I can't. Don't you understand? I can't just let you go." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "I've lost everything because of you. My job, my reputation, everything. You lost those things because of your choices, not mine." "I made those choices for us," his voice cracked. "I gave up promotions to help you, turned down transfers to stay in the city. Everything I did was for you, and this is how you repay me." Rhea backed toward the window, her mind calculating distances and exits the way she'd been trained to analyze spaces. "Marcus, you need help, professional help. This obsession isn't healthy." "It's not obsession, it's love." He moved closer. "And I know you still feel it too. You have to. We had 3 years together. 3 years of you controlling every aspect of my life. I was protecting you. From what? From having my own thoughts? My own money? My own choices? Ria's voice rose. You didn't protect me, Marcus. You isolated me. And you called it love because that's easier than admitting you were just afraid of being alone. Something broke in his expression. He lunged for her, but Ria was already moving. She'd spent 3 weeks studying this apartment, remembering its layout, and she knew exactly where the fire escape was. She threw open the window and climbed out just as Marcus's hand closed on empty air. "Ria!" he shouted. "Don't you dare run from me again!" But she was already down the fire escape, hitting the alley at a run. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and called Yu Jun. "He found me," she gasped. "At my apartment. I got out, but..." "Stay on the line. Tell me where you are." She gave him the intersection, then kept moving, weaving through side streets. Behind her, she could hear Marcus calling her name, his voice echoing off the buildings. Her architect's brain kicked in automatically, mapping routes, identifying choke points, finding the path of least resistance. She ducked into a parking garage, found a maintenance door she'd noticed months ago when she'd surveyed the building for a project. It led to a service corridor that opened onto the next street. By the time Marcus reached the garage, she was gone. Yu Jun found her 2 blocks away, pulling up in his black sedan with 3 cars behind him. He got out, looked her over for injuries, then pulled her into his arms. "Are you hurt?" "No, I got out." Her voice was steadier than she expected. "I didn't need you to save me, but I'm glad you're here." "Always," he said, and meant it. His men spread out, searching for Marcus. They found him an hour later, still looking for Ria in the streets around her apartment. Yu Jun's men brought him to a warehouse on the edge of the city. Ria insisted on being there. Marcus was sitting in a chair when they arrived, his hands zip-tied in front of him. He looked small now. Pathetic. Nothing like the man who'd controlled her life for 3 years. "You're really with him," Marcus said when he saw her. "After everything I did for you, you're choosing a criminal." Ria walked forward until she was standing directly in front of him. "You didn't make me strong, Marcus. You just made me afraid. He didn't save me from you. He just gave me space to save myself. That's the difference. That's what you never understood." She turned to Yu Jun. "I'm done. Let's go." "What about him?" Yu Jun asked. "He's not worth it. Let him go. He's already lost everything that mattered to him. His control, his image, me, there's nothing left to take." Yu Jun nodded to his men. They cut Marcus's restraints and left him sitting in that empty warehouse, exactly as alone as he'd always feared he'd be. 6 months later, Ria stood in front of the renovated building, watching families move into their new apartments. The ground floor community center was already bustling, kids running through the space she'd designed for them, the building she'd saved, the space she'd made real. Yu Jun stood beside her, his hand in hers. "You did this," he said. "We did this," she corrected. Her architecture firm was on the 2nd floor, her name on the door. Yu Jun had helped fund it, but it was hers, her designs, her team, her future. "I have something for you," Yu Jun said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Ria's breath caught. "Yu Jun." "It's not what you think, not yet." He opened the box to reveal a key. "I'm buying us a house, and I want you to design it. Every room, every detail, a space that's completely ours." "Ours," she repeated, "if you want it." His dark eyes met hers, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. "I know I'm not easy. I know my world is dangerous. But I love you, Ria, and I want to build something with you that's ours, not mine, not yours. Ours." Tears pricked her eyes. "I need full creative control." "Of course. And eventually, I want a ring, a real one." "Eventually," he agreed, smiling. "And you need to stop putting armed guards outside my office. The neighbors are starting to talk. We'll negotiate." Ria laughed, and it felt like freedom, like home, Like finally, after years of running, she'd found a place worth staying for. Not because someone had built a cage and called it love, but because someone had given her space and called it trust. She kissed him there on the street, in front of the building she'd saved and the life she'd built. And for the first time in her life, Ria Song felt like she belonged to herself. And that was worth everything. So what did you think? Drop a comment below and tell me. Have you ever had to choose yourself over someone who claimed to love you? And if this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away from what's familiar and into what's real. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.